How are you?
I am, but not compared with ha 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 ha.
Haha.
I'm. I saw some claim on Facebook
Uh-oh.
that wrapping your knee or joints in cabbage leaves can relieve pain for people with osteoarthritis. So I
What?
looked it up.
Is it debunked?
Actually, it's somewhat true. Somewhat true.
Somewhat.
But I'm not I'm not able to tell at the moment
Hmm.
if it's all it says is uh, the cabbage leaf wraps were more effective for knee than doing nothing.
Okay.
But not compared with a Voltaren gel, and therefore it might be useful and further research is warranted. That's from the National Library of Medicine.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Makes me.
Fascinating when you look up bullshit articles on Facebook that have some semblance of truth. Now the big question is, and this would be something for their further research, how much of that was placebo effect and
Yeah.
how much of the and were the people doing nothing using a just
Hmm.
doing the same care just without the cabbage leaf.
And the other big question, because I don't have cabbage, but I have coleslaw. Can I pour coleslaw on my knee? Will that work if I wrap my knee in coleslaw? Um,
I think it would smell bad.
it would.
And I think your wife might object.
I think she'd just be one of many people who would probably object, and not quite
Yes,
sure how you would
indeed.
get it to stick either.
Yeah, today was an interesting Facebook read. Before I was reading that, I was reading that they're going to be doing Disney will be opening starting uh Ghost Rider and Hellstrom on Hulu. But the nice thing about Ghost Rider is they're going to be using the same guy. I want to say his name is Gabriel Luna.
Oh,
Um, he was the guy that played Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's going to be the same actor that's doing the Hulu series, but the two are not going to be connected.
because that won't cause any confusion. Disney. What is it? Disney. They own like 40% of all entertainment in the entire world, so they just figure they got carte blanche and they just start messing with all kinds of things. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day, Dawn, that we could watch stuff and.
True. I like to fill my day mostly with reading books and watching movies. Unfortunately, work has been taking entirely too big of a chunk out of my day lately.
Uh,
Days,
I can
plural, and nights.
I can relate to that definitely. I
Hmm.
can definitely
But
feel.
yeah, I mean, where it's a good move that they're using the same actor, it is going to be confusing, but they'll have the face recognition for fans of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who are immediately going to flock to Hulu to watch this.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is a known face, though. I haven't watched any Agents of Shield.
Oh,
I know.
I like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.,
I,
or I like some of it. I
I
like Agent Coulson.
well, who doesn't like Colson? That's why a lot of people watch it. The first couple episodes, Jill and I sat down and watched, and they were a little rough because the show was trying to get its footing, of sorts. So, and I
Hmm.
understand that any series like this, it takes a while. But I had too many other things to watch that I'm just like, I just can't right now. And and I understand it's linked to the MCU, but there's also
Mhm.
a little bit of resistance to seeing Agents of Shield just because I don't think I should have to watch a TV show in order to follow what's going on in the movies. But um yeah, sorry.
No,
It's
I
just
totally get that.
it just
It actually has less to do with the movies,
mhm.
a lot less to do with the movies.
But the,
Um,
the events in the movies do impact Agents of Shield though, right?
it does,
Yeah,
but
okay.
the events of Agents of Shield don't necessarily affect the uh, cinematic universe.
Okay. I gotcha. All right. And it does bleed over anyway. I mean, the cinematic universe had the whole thing with what Shield was actually infiltrated by Hydra and all that. Um so
Hmm.
so there is that. So it's still part of the cinematic universe, but yeah, I'll watch it eventually. I just have so many other things to watch. It's just like, that one's not exactly high on the priority list.
Yeah, I've been catching up on things because I have to make decisions on which streaming services I'm keeping and which ones I'm not because it's a little silly to have 3, in my humble
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, it's getting pretty bad, and what's problem is as more and more of these channels decide to go inclusive, or exclusive, I should say, go exclusive with their stuff and pull it off of the other streaming channels that they've had contracts with. I think people are going to find that if they really want to watch all the shows that they want, it's actually going to be more expensive than cable.
Oh, yeah. See, Amazon, I loved having Amazon Prime. I still love having Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime was going to be the no-brainer winner for me until they pulled all the indie movies.
Yeah.
And now I just went through my watch list, and a full 2/3 of my watch list I had to delete because this movies are no longer we are no longer contracted with a provider to stream this movie, which of course were I mean there was there was at least one of Chris Mims. There was a couple of Andrews.
Hmm.
There was there was a bunch of indie ones that I really either I've kept on there because I've rewatched them over and over, or I've been wanting to see and I've been slowly getting through them. But I'm horribly disappointed because that was the perfect outlet for those films.
They are slowly filtering back. Hulu actually surprisingly has quite a number of indie stuff on it. Or excuse me, it did the last time I was on it. It had quite a bit of indie stuff on Hulu, which surprised me. But I mean, in fact, one point I think Dead Weight was on Hulu.
It
Um,
was.
yeah, so there is still that. I don't know if that's the same because now Disney owns Hulu. They own 60% controlling stock. So not only do they have Disney Plus, but now they can pretty much control what shows up on Hulu. I'm sorry, but House of Mouse is getting scary as far as the perspective of an entertainment enjoyer.
you know, these I think back to the days of when Bell had the monopoly on phones
Mhm.
and how that monopoly was broken. And I look at today and think, oh God, Bell has nothing on what these guys are doing today. And here they are being encouraged.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're being encouraged for it, and they're finding the loopholes in such a way to where they can do these things and get away with them. I mean,
Hmm.
because it is scary to think of just how much of the classic. Now, granted, you have the other big studios, but still, for the most part, you look at how much Disney owns, and yeah, it's a little creepy.
Yep.
How much they control, and it's like, wow, and they are just flying. I mean, the minute they finally acquired Fox, they started canceling a whole bunch of projects there that were going to happen in Foxland. And now they're running so much of this specialized stuff for Disney Plus, and they're only going to show their movies there and nowhere else. I mean, it's like, and what's sad is people really don't have a choice now with the death of the video store.
Yeah, that's true. I just read that the Family Video in Rapids is closing this month, May 21st.
Are we taking a road trip to see what discounts we can get?
Sales start Friday.
Mm. We may need to take a road trip.
I've got nothing else going on this weekend.
I don't either. The wife works most of the weekend, but we might just need to take a road trip to Family Video in the
No
Rapids.
kidding.
Especially if they're going to be clearing out some stuff, I'll be there because indie. I mean, freaking Family
That's
Video.
another great source for indie or at least small release films. I
Oh yeah,
just picked up what I told you. I picked up a copy of something I was going to give to you, and then I saw a copy of Bone Hill Road
oh
over
yeah,
there too, and that
sure.
was submitted to the
Mhm.
New Horror Film
Oh yeah,
Festival.
that's where I picked up my copy of the Blood. Was it? Oh, I forgot it. Blood Camp, not Blood Camp. The one shot in Appleton area. I forgot.
Oh yeah. I don't
The
remember what it's called, but I know which one you're talking about.
it's like right on the tip of my tongue, but yeah, there was that one was shot there, and you could show up. I also saw copies of Dead Weight and Family Video. You see copies of
Mhm.
a number of the indie stuff we watched either in festival and that show up, and then you wait around a month or two, and they'd show up for $4.99, and hell yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah. Oh god, yeah.
So okay, we'll get started here. I had to tone my brain down a little bit anyway. I just finished 2 of my special series that I'm doing, and I'm letting you know now. Godzilla films.
Oh, well, I'm not
There's
surprised.
there's
How many Godzilla films did we talk about last year?
we talked about the 4 major ones, the
Yep.
reboot ones basically, and I've reviewed the others, but so on our podcast we did, but for the final cut I've decided May has how many days?
Mhm.
31. How many films are there of Godzilla? 31.
Oh
Yes.
dear.
Oh, yes. I am going to review. I may not get one out every day, but I am going to do my darndest to review every Godzilla film in the franchise up until the release of the 2019 Godzilla King of the Monsters.
You are seriously an overachiever, Mark.
I am an overachiever. I've got 2 reviews done. I've got to do the third one yet and edit those. I'll get my first one up tonight for sure yet. And yeah, I'm going to do my darndest to try to do this because I haven't actually watched all of them. So it'll be a fun adventure. I'm not sure my approach with them yet. I'm just kind of winging this. But yeah, I'm going to try because I love me some kaiju films. So.
Mhm.
So, all right, we'll get started here with this interesting film. Let me burp enough. Sorry if I burped. Had a decent dinner. So, all right. Welcome, my friends. Yes, for venturing down into the spoiler room, and it is a table for 2 set tonight to talk about a 1984 classic in quotes, and we are talking about a Firestarter from 1984. And joining me tonight, she is with us, the diva of the spoiler room. It is the fantastic Dawn. Hello, Dawn. How are you?
I am, well, fantastic.
Hey, all right.
And
Good.
it is totally a classic.
It is. It is a classic. Okay. Yes, you're right. It is a classic. Now, did you want to give the synopsis of this, or I can go ahead and give it? It's not that deep of a film, so.
It's really not. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's been a little while since I've done one of these, but Firestarter, we get the story of a dad and his daughter. Now, the dad and his late wife were the subject of an experiment by a place called The Shop, and they acquired through this experiment some very extraordinary powers and have passed those powers on to their daughter. But due to The Shop wanting to keep things quiet, it resulted in the death of the mother, and the dad and the daughter are on the run. And we see how they try to live their lives while avoiding the shop, and then eventually getting their revenge on the place that created them. How's that? That's okay.
That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. So, Dawn, did you get a chance to see this in the theaters at all, or was this a later watch for you?
Oh God, I was barely 10 years old when this came out.
So, did you watch it in the theater, or did you watch it? Sorry. My parents took me to way more movies than they probably should have. So,
Yeah, I did not. I
mm,
did not go to a whole lot of movies when
mm,
I was quite that young, and
uh,
when I did, it was things like Mary Poppins. Um,
I watched those too.
I now that's not to say that around the time that this movie came out, that I hadn't read the book already.
Okay. So, how long after did you read the book or it came out? Did you actually see it? Was it many moons or?
Um, it was a few years. I mean,
Mhm.
when it hit TV,
Sure, sure. And
I didn't
what?
see it uncut until quite a bit later,
Ah,
but I did see it on TV. I mean, I was a teenager, barely a teenager.
those fun TV edits of mature films. Gotta love that. Lots of
Mhm.
commercials and little content. And what are your initial feelings with Firestarter when you actually finally saw, say, the final uncut version?
Well, when I finally saw the uncut version, I thought it was pretty decent. I mean,
Mm,
to stay close to they really did try to stay close to the source material, which
mhm.
was appreciated, which is probably also why it didn't get a whole lot of positive reviews from the critics. Um, and yet, a lot of people in the past decade or two have really found have really started to enjoy it. If you read through the user reviews on the websites like Internet Movie Database and whatnot.
And Rotten Tomatoes too, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I don't take into account anything that that place has to say.
Yes, screw those tomatoes, I tell you. Yeah, I saw this when it was out. I didn't actually see this one in the theater. My parents did not seem, but I did see it when it was out on rental, the uncut version.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed it. It's really known for one, not so much for dime store Patrick Swayze, but for the very young Drew Barrymore in this, putting in
Oh, and Heather Locklear.
and Heather
She was a
Locklear.
big draw.
I
Everybody wanted to see her.
and I forgot she was in it till we watched it again because it's been so long since I watched this film. I don't, didn't revisit that often, but watching it, I'm like, holy crap, it's got Heather Locklear. I totally
Mhm.
forgot, she was in it. And then you've got Martin Sheen and George C. Scott. Yeah, the cast is actually very impressive for this
Art
time.
Carney and oh god.
Oh man,
Yeah, tons of
Art Carney showing up was amazing. And this is what, like, now the was this like the fifth or sixth, no, even longer than that. This is like the eighth film based off of a Stephen King novel that get the theatrical treatment. Same year Children of the Corn came out. Uh,
mhm.
and
Something else came out just a couple years before this. But
Christine and Dead Zone were before that,
there
and
you go.
Cujo. Christine,
Mhm.
Cujo, and Dead Zone came out before that. Creepshow was before that. Shining, and of course, the classic Carrie was the first, I do believe,
Yes.
of the adapted, properties. So here we have Firestarter, and I, okay, everybody knows I don't read much anymore. Okay, I used to though. I used to read some King. I started to read Firestarter. I never finished, but I will say that I found, I was reading the first few chapters and I'm like, holy crap, the movie did actually kind of try to hold close to the book. Like,
Yeah, it really tried. I give full credit for trying.
but it is a Stephen King film. So trying to fully, be hold true to an adaptation and have it be visually entertaining in the movie medium really is difficult for King.
It it is because there's so much, especially with these um, movies that are these children with abilities
Mhm.
movies that he has, because there's no good way to make it visually spectacular. There simply isn't. And they tried. All those glorious special effects they used, they really tried.
They try, and in this one, it is impressive. And what's funny with Firestarter is I started watching this, and my oldest son, honorable son number one, who's 18 and a half, almost 19, he was giving me the snark, but soon he popped popcorn and he sat down with me and watched it. And then my youngest, who's 17, just fresh 17, he came in about halfway through, sat down and watched the rest.
See,
So
it's a solid movie. It actually still works today.
that's the one thing. It does work today. It is, while it's not entirely deep, it is character driven. We got a large number of characters, all classics King type characters. I mean, I joke that he's dime store Patrick Swayze, but I always thought David Keith just he was like, not quite Patrick Swayze, but he always reminded me quite a bit of him. He's kind of your blue collar guy who
Yeah, he is.
the Stephen King blue collar guy in here. You've got your just your crazy scary guy in the form of George C. Scott's John Rainbird. Your military, your Martin Sheen, Captain Hollister. What about there's isn't King usually kind of has a religious aspect in it, but in this one I didn't quite feel it. Was that missing in this, or was that in the book? Or because you know what I'm talking about, there's usually some kind of religious icon,
Okay.
representative in it.
Now, I thought that was supposed to be George C. Scott's Rainburn character.
Really? Well,
I did
okay.
because he was the one. His Rainbird, sorry,
Mhm.
his thing was he was obsessed with, and you get it. I don't know if you caught it so much when you're watching the movie. They did touch on it a lot when you were when during the movie, but it really delved into it in the book. Um, the reason he was an executioner, an
Right.
exterminator. So the reason he killed people the way he did, for example, when he killed Freddie Jones in the movie, Freddie
Yes.
Jones,
Hmm.
haha. Um,
Great to see Freddie Jones.
Absolutely. We just talked about him in something else recently. Anyhow, I digress. When he killed Freddie Jones, he made sure, even though he went in there and he was asleep, he made sure to wake him up, make sure he got eye contact so he could see the soul leaving the body, so he could learn something from that experience. That was the king's spiritual religious aspect in this film.
Oh, okay. Again, I apologize. I'm not that deep of a person, so I may have missed that. He was coming off kind of as a creepy guy. I mean, he's
It,
creepy, but
and the film kind of made kind of I don't think it was intentional, but the film did kind of make him uh, have a kind of a pedophilia kind of
oh, good. That's okay.
touch to it.
Okay,
And
good.
I don't think it was intended to be that way. I think that and I'm just going to say it, I don't think the direction was good enough to prevent it.
I'm okay. You made me feel a little better because I was like, that was a bit of not like real heavy, but that was kind of a underlying vibe with it. I'm like, where are they kind of going with this? Because at initial face value, or when he first starts talking, you're just kind of like, okay, I'm just getting a real creeper vibe from this guy.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think it's direction, because even with Martin Sheen's character, his reactions didn't help with the way they
No,
were.
it didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think George C. Scott, the Rainbird character, I think he was supposed to be I think he was supposed to be showing obsession, a religious obsession with her because she had. So we know that Drew Barrymore's character Charlie is pyrokinetic,
Mhm.
um, but she's also, and they only just touched on this. She also has foresight. She can see into the future a little bit.
Yeah, well, foresight, and I almost got the feeling of a bit of telepathy too, but they never really explore anything on that in the movie.
It was too much for them to do in that.
Mm.
But if memory serves, I'm going to have to go back and revisit this book. But if memory serves, they did touch more on that in the book because they did say that she had powers from both parents.
Hmm. Right, and in which case, he was the pusher, and she could read minds,
Hmm.
thanks to some psychedelic Lot 6 drug. that
Mhm.
they took,
That
which
apparently killed everybody else that took it, except for those 2.
right, which is why the shop wanted these 2 because they wanted to know what the hell, much less have an offspring who has even, just as many powers.
Mhm.
And their experimentation, that touches on the old school 70s university, kids
Mhm.
getting money to take LSD basically. So they're playing off of that angle as well because this is 84, and she was supposed to be like 8. So yeah, uh,
Yep.
they were from mid 70s. So yeah, so they kind of all made sense and came together. But yeah, they wanted to chase them down in true government 80s fashion,
Yep.
matching
It
cars and suits. Uh, go ahead.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. But I do think that the Rainbird character I do believe that the Rainbird character wasn't intended to come off as a
Pedophile?
creeper.
Yeah.
Well, not a pedophilia type
Right.
creeper, but a religious zealot,
Mm.
maybe a little closer to Carrie White's mom.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Kind of a
Mhm.
except not quite so crazy and
Mhm.
obvious.
Yeah, it wasn't quite obvious. Like as the film went on and you pay attention a little more the way he talked, you're like, okay, it's something a little bit more than that. But the first couple times he's talking about it, how he wants her when they're done with the experiments, and
Mhm.
the Martin Sheen's captain character gets that shocked look on his face. So does the audience because you're like, why?
Yep.
Like, I really hope it doesn't go there, but it doesn't. He goes on the hunt, which doesn't take him quite that long to track down old Andrew McGee and his daughter. Uh, this guy is a really good tracker because
Mhm.
what surprises me with the film, with the way they play it off, is how they're on the run. Is they're only on the run for what, maybe a third of the film?
Yeah, they're not on the run for very long. Um, and that too is relevant for today because um, whether or not they would have had cell phones or whatever, back even then in the 80s, it was impossible to hide for too long.
Yeah.
It's impossible to go underground, and you just can't.
Yeah, because I mean they don't play it off too much, but there's some kind of thing that this agency's putting out to where they're on the run because everywhere they go, people see them, and it always seemed to be an older woman making the phone call,
Mhm.
you know. But yeah, while they're on the run, before they get picked up by the shop, we get to see old Charlie's powers. And she set fire to an interesting scene in the was it the airport where there's a soldier and he's talking to a woman who he got pregnant, and he's like, how do you know it's even mine or whatnot? And while the dad's trying to get quarters out of the, yes, this is how old the show is, folks, getting quarters out of the payphone, she gets angry and she sets his shoes on fire.
Yep.
It was a great moment in here, and it was a great introduction to her powers. The way she, especially the way she talks about it too, pulling it back in that. And I thought
Mhm.
that's the one thing they do establish well is her powers, and they don't hold back, Dawn, on this, on her using her powers on people.
They really don't.
It's kind of surprising for how young she is. I mean, you get to see where she sets the guy's shoes on fire. Then later on, they cross paths with Art Carney's character Irv, who's fantastic. It's great
Mhm.
seeing Art. You're like, oh my god, it's Art Carney. This movie just got so much more awesome. And then Jessica Fletcher or Louise Fletcher
Yeah.
is Jessica Fletcher. Wrong series. Louise Fletcher is his wife, and seeing both of those, I was like, wow, I forgot she was in this. Um,
Yeah, I saw that and I'm like, "Sheldon, that was Nurse Ratched, wasn't it?"
well, and later on in DS9, she goes on to be uh, one of the priestesses, the head
See?
priestess. So
Such a cool actress.
she is a very versatile and cool actress. It was great to see her in there. And what I like how they played it off is Irv is just a great, kind character. Of course, Louise's Flesher, Norma, his wife, plays it a little bit more suspicious. At first, I thought they kind of played it off that she called the cops on them.
No.
But they didn't, just initially the way she reacted because she was
Mhm.
hesitant with those two. But you get that great farmhouse scene with especially with Art Carney and David Keith about telling the truth and what he where he is, and you get the classic 80s moment in here where it's the people versus the government. This whole scene with the standoff with the government officials showing up at Irv's house that dawn, was this kind of very 80s trope-ish?
Very, very trope stereotype. Yep, very much so. You get the and part of it was part of, I mean, it's very much the period. And
Mhm.
also, again, going back to the direction, um, the way the scene was set up, this is the same guy that directed Commando.
Yeah, right.
So could it, I mean, how much was written that way and how much was director influence?
Yeah, it's hard to
Yeah.
say, though I like Bando, but he does direct.
I'm
Go ahead.
No, I agree. I like him too, but he definitely has a style.
He's got a style, I will say, with this action sequence, because they do the standoff, folks, at Irv's place, and he comes out with a gun and saying that, I'm American, and, and that we're not going to fly any Nazi flags or something. I forgot what it's classic 80s patriotic Cold War discussion here, but she unleashes some of her hellfire, literally, on these folks. And this scene is, I thought, directed really well, and I think this director's strength is in action, which is unusual,
Yes,
which is kind of surprising because there's not in all honesty, a huge amount of action in this film with the story. So it's kind of unusual for his style, but at least the action scenes, especially this one, he seems comfortable with setting guys on fire and blowing up cars and that. Um, so I think he's more comfortable with the action scenes, at least in this film. At least it felt like it.
I
I don't,
agree.
yeah.
And I think part of the reason that perhaps part of the reason he was selected to direct this film was because of the spectacular ending.
Yes. Yes. Oh, we will definitely get to the ending in just a little bit. Before that, though, I want to talk about our star Drew Barrymore in this. As child actors go, you hear the horror stories, you hear how difficult children are, you hear about people say the kids are really annoying. I think the annoyance level for Charlie was a bit at a minimum, but you could see, as far as child performers go, there was some really natural talent with her in this film, especially considering she was pretty much the star of it. What'd you think of Drew Barrymore in this?
Spectacular, or very, very good.
Mhm,
She actually did. She was incredibly professional.
mhm,
She interacted well with most people. Um, there were a few, I mean, she was a child, she was doing her lines to the best she could. I
right,
mean, so there were obviously a few places where it kind of was awkward, but for the most part, you couldn't have asked for a better
mhm.
actress in that role.
Yeah, especially in the scenes with Rainbird, because and maybe it's partly George C. Scott by this time, the veteran actor, helped make her feel comfortable. But old John Rainbird, being the executioner he is, wanting to get close to old Charlie once the shop has her and her dad, he poses as an orderly to be her friend and kind of replace her dad because they're keeping her and her dad separate. And these scenes with George C. Scott and her are very surprisingly touching and really well done.
They really were. It's because, and I like that you pointed out that he kind of fills that dad role because dad was always taking care of her, telling her that her powers were bad. Rainbird comes in, he portrays himself as a weaker person who's been through a lot of trauma and says, maybe your powers aren't so bad. You just have to use them so that you can learn to control them, which
Yeah,
makes her feel like she's not a bad person. And yeah.
yeah. Oh, he manipulates her very well, and it's because of the performance of George C. Scott that it's believable. I mean, George Scott is. I love George C. Scott, and
Mhm.
this is actually a really solid role for him in this kind of complex character. And yeah, he has a great scene where the lights go out and he plays to it because there's a storm going on at the shop. And up until then, she's been kind of resistant. And then it goes dark and he improvs and he goes into how he has PTSD from Vietnam because it is 84. So,
Mhm.
very believable in that and doing exactly how some people can, play and give the child the power and make them the braver of the person. And suddenly he endears himself to her to
Mhm.
where she's like, oh no, I will help you. Cause she, she's a kid. She wants to help. No real, regular kid wants to see anyone scared or hurt. So yeah, it was really interesting how his character played that. And I think the best scenes are with her and George C. Scott in this movie, quite a bit more so than her and her dad. And that's no dig on David Keith. He does fine, but like you said, yeah, his dad character is always on the run, always protecting her. So therefore, he's doesn't always is not always a dad to her as so much
Correct.
as a protector or a commander, if you will.
Yeah, we don't get to see that actual father. You get to see some of it, but not as full developed. Because you're right, they are always on the run. You don't ever get to see. You get to see a little bit of it, but then she's so traumatized by being on the run that it always reverts back to that protector role. And George C. Scott gets the compassionate
Yes,
relationship.
he definitely gets the compassionate relationship, and a chunk of this middle film is really hinges in developing that. Meanwhile, the dad just still trying to figure out how to get him and his daughter out.
Yep. And the funny thing is, as this relationship is developing with George C. Scott with Rainbird,
Yes.
um, the they're showing their scenes with Captain Hollister, Martin Sheen's character, where he's trying to win her over with dolls and toys and all this, and she's just like basically telling him to go to hell.
Yeah, yeah, the Captain Hollister's really trying to win her over with stuff because she's a kid. So he figures, oh, this is stuff. This is a younger Martin Sheen, by the way, folks. Um, so his guy though is taking kind of the materialistic approach, whereas Rainbird, being the intelligent guy he is, realizes she's got a void right now by keeping her away from her dad, and yeah, we're just going to fill that with another father figure, but more of a friend because she's got no skin with him, so it's kind of easier to befriend him, especially the you know act he puts on, even with his scary eye, uh, which
One thing, as we're talking about all these male influences in her life, one thing that I appreciate about this movie is they never tried to fill in the mother figure.
no.
There are no female influences going on here except for, Norma, but that's so minimal.
uh, yeah, the Norma was so minimal, and it was more of a almost like a grandmotherly than a motherly type of thing, a little bit more
Yep.
disconnect. It wasn't quite as a close bond. So yeah, it's basically her. and all these male influences
And
on
here's where
her.
I'm going to get a little bit deep.
Oh, go ahead.
So the movie being, or the story being about Charlie as the main character, this power, barely controlled power, that's just hasn't even hit puberty yet,
Mhm.
so it hasn't even started to reach its potential, is being controlled by all these men. Always these men. Dad teaching her how to control it, dad being in charge, mom being mom being taken out of the picture
Mhm.
relatively early. Um, but there's no real other females at all in play here. It's all the men controlling her, befriending her, trying to manipulate her. It's always the men.
It
You
is.
wanna can we say misogyny?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, there's definitely the message of misogyny in here. Because you've got the different aspects of people. You've got the dad who's a protector but who's distant. You've got the Captain Hollister who's the materialistic guy who's like, here, you want this and you want these things and you want these things. These are the things you want. You want a fuzzy bear, and then you have the Rainbird character, which is someone who's actually trying to be a friend, but at the same time, he's manipulating her as well, but playing to her sympathies. And yeah,
And the Freddie Jones character, the doctor who created the experiment, who did the experiment to begin with, literally created her.
yeah, yeah, she is literally the result of his creation. But we get to see how all these influences in the end cannot exactly prevail over her own spirit
Yep. Or her vengeance.
or her vengeance. Hell hath no fury. And she's got a lot of fury in this third act.
Oh yes.
Which folks, it's 1984. We don't have CGI. This is an impressive third act because here her dad has faked taking drugs that repress his abilities, so he gets full on abilities, and he comes up with this way using Captain Hollister as controlling him to escape with his daughter on a helicopter. Well, she confides, of course, into Rainbird because she thinks, oh, that's my buddy who Rainbird wants to kill dad. And we get to this climactic ending to where she's in a barn. She thinks Rainbird's her buddy. Rainbird shoots her dad, and she realizes what Rainbird. And yeah, she no longer pulls back her powers, which we've seen already not only set fire to wood, but set fire to
Mhm.
cinder blocks. And man, this final act, this is impressive, Don. I was blown away, literally and figuratively, by this finale because of actually the sheer stunt work and such that they did in this. This is a pretty impressive ending. Was it as climactic in the book? Oh.
Um, I don't. I believe so, but
Mhm,
again, the visuals are where the visuals for the psychic abilities
mhm.
aren't as impressive on screen. The pyrotechnics on screen came across as more impressive.
Oh yeah, I mean, because I loved how they played with it. You had the water boiling at first. You had people starting to sweat. Um,
Mhm.
and then yeah, she just unleashes her fury on Rainbird and the rest of the shop down to fireballs. We get actual fireballs in this movie, which was freaking
Yep.
awesome. And
Yep.
and of course the movie guy in me is looking going, wow, for 84, those are fireballs on wires. I'm like,
Yeah. I mean, and granted, there's a few places where you can see the tricks and the wires and the oil or whatever they
mhm,
used to control where the fire was going. But that was real fire they were using with Drew Barrymore and those horses right there.
Yeah, she's in the barn and there is fire. She is actually in the scene with the barn on fire and the horses running out. And it's like, wow, they really must have had people keeping watch, because she's actually in a few little bit of a, not for lack of a better pun, hot situations, to where you're like, man, if something goes wrong, you lose your star actress.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, one of my favorite things, and it was because it was practical, was when you had the three guys running away from her, and the one line of fire that she was creating split off into three and lit them
Yep.
on fire. And I'm like, that's awesome.
That took planning and talent.
It took planning and timing and talent. And yes, there are a lot of people that get caught on fire in this film.
Yeah.
They must have hired every pyrotechnic special effects guy, and then, like I said, the fireballs were impressive, and they do an excellent job of kind of blending the miniature of the mansion that she blows up with the live action as well. I mean, this special effects in this film, especially for its time, were impressive. They put some work into it, which was a surprise, in all honesty, for the type of film it is.
Absolutely.
Now it didn't gross that much. I think it kind of made its budget back, but like you said, I don't know how it was received initially when it came out critically, but this is a film that I think has kind of, as you mentioned, grown some love over the years.
Yep, it really has. I mean, again, just reading some of the user reviews,
Mhm.
there's a lot of love for this.
Well, I think though, and it kind of alludes back to what we were talking about before, about what other King movies came out before this. This is actually, for a King film, or a film based off of a Stephen King story, a bit different than what your cinematic audience is used to seeing from a King film, I think, in some respects, because you get this whole middle section, which, where she's building a relationship with Rainbird and that, and yeah, you get a few of the tests, but in all honesty, it slows way down in this film. You don't have a whole lot of horror elements in here. I mean,
Yes and no.
you think so?
For the King movies that were adapted back in the early 80s, like Carrie and Christine, and especially Cujo, there were some serious lulls in those.
Mhm.
Um, Cujo had Cujo was a far more interesting book than it was movie. But Christine, I mean, Christine, there
Yeah,
was lots of lulls. There were spurts of action,
sure.
but there were lots of lulls as uh, the characters evolved and changed.
Right.
And um, Carrie too, there were lulls
Mhm.
as
That's
things were
true.
happening. That changed after um, that changed especially after Stanley Kubrick did The Shining,
Yeah.
because then people wanted to be, oh my God, that's so awesome. We need to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not exactly how they were, but
No.
essentially.
Dude, man, that was cool. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, The Shining was such an impactful film, and based off of Stephen King. And then Cujo, yeah, as far as horror elements go, though,
Cujo didn't have it at
Cujo
all.
really didn't have it. No, Christine did. Dead Zone had that.
I love the Dead Zone.
The Dead Zone's awesome, which we will be talking about later on our Welcome to Cronenberg. So you'll want to stay tuned for that, folks. Um,
Oh, cool.
yeah, I believe that is on our list as well. But as far as Firestarter goes, it does have, for me, watching the other films too in the past, this does have a different feel to it, though, than I think some of those other films a little bit. Maybe
It really does.
maybe
Yes.
it's because we have the young actress as the main character in here, but even the way the story plays out, it feels different. Maybe is it maybe because we don't have a supernatural type of paranormal type of angle worked into it. I mean, because
It's it's they I mean, the pyrokinesis is there, but you're right, it's less there. This is definitely more of a character-driven film.
yeah, it definitely. I mean, because the other ones, and yes, folks, I know you can various degrees, but if you look at it, they had a little bit more of a supernatural, paranormal, weird feel to it. And this one, yeah, is character driven. It feels a little bit more grounded in reality, for lack of a better term. Um, you know, and I think maybe that's why this feels different than those other King films.
You pointed it out earlier, you couldn't find the religious aspect, so it didn't have the fantasy stuff going on.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yep.
it was more subtle in the fantasy, and I'm glad you pointed it out because now that you say that and put it in that context, I see that now completely with his character. I think that's where a spot where this film lacks in is pointing at conveying the true motivation of Rainbird. It,
Mhm.
I think, could have been a little bit stronger in here. The Captain Hollister character, Martin Sheen, playing it to the hilt, going, "Look, we got this on tape. We got it on tape. She set fire to cinder blocks. Let's do this." That one scene, he had me laughing the way he was so like, "We got it on tape. Look at this." Never mind.
This is gonna hold up in a court of law.
I had no idea where he was going with that. I'm like, what? Like, okay, there, Captain Hollister. Whatever.
Yeah.
But I did like how it ended too, though. Kind of with her coming back after she just annihilates everybody at the shop, and I mean annihilates. She burns it to the ground, just like her dad said before he died. She just goes all out, and we're not talking just one fireball. There are multiple fireballs. But she goes back to Irv and Norma, which I thought was kind of fitting. um
It was appropriate because again, there was no real I mean, her grandparents were gone, her parents were gone. There was no other real healthy influences in her life, no real female influences are in her life, and that's a nice grandparently couple going on there, who were nice to her.
yeah, they were very nice to her, and I thought it tied it up well, and it made sense, and it was a good way to end it, because there's ways they could have ended this to where you're just like, well, what's she gonna do now? She's an 8-year-old who can start things on fire, you know. But she goes back to normalcy. uh,
Mm,
in
ish.
ish. Okay, her personally, no, but a life with
Yes.
Irv and Norma, she kind of goes to the normalcy, which I'm gonna be honest, Dawn. Please don't hit me, but this really made me want to see a sequel.
There is a sequel.
Is there really a Firestarter with not with Drew though?
No, it was the 2002 Firestarter. That's the sequel.
That's what I meant. I wanted to see a sequel with Drew, like
Oh,
yeah. I thought actually was, the minute I said it. I thought, yeah, there was a sequel, but
not
I
with Drew.
I kind of wanted to see it. Have you seen the sequel? I fail
I
apparently
have not.
miserably.
I have not. I just know it exists.
But
'Cause I remember when it came out, I wanted to see it, and then I'm like, "Yeah, there's other things I wanna see more."
okay, it was a mini
So
series,
then yeah,
Firestarter Rekindled.
yeah, so I never got around I never ended up getting around to it.
Okay, and wow, that really doesn't make sense.
Mm-mm.
That sequel really, folks. Oh my God.
Did they
Um,
remake it first and then do a sequel?
I'm not sure if they did, because the Firestarter 2 Rekindled stars Malcolm McDowell as John Rainbird.
Hmm,
It was from the Sci-Fi Network. It was a mini series.
Interesting.
Yeah, apparently they had Danny Nucci, Dennis Hopper, Malcolm McDowell was Rainbird. That's odd. Uh,
You know, I like Dennis Hopper and Malcolm McDowell. Um, sure.
sure, why not? But again, if this is supposed to be a sequel to the original, that makes absolutely no sense.
None whatsoever.
Because Rainbird, there's no way you can explain away that Rainbird survived.
No, because he was incinerated
He was
as
literally
if by dragon fire.
yes. She went all Daenerys on him and when Drakari and just and so yeah, I'm not sure. Oh my god, why did they buy Sci-Fi Channel 2000 early 2000s? That explains it all. Um
Mhm. They had to explore a lot of things.
I
Wow.
guess, but it would have been nice to see Drew Barrymore back as the character because I'm always been a fan of Drew
Mhm.
and I like her in this because she was the it girl for a while.
And then she was the it girl again.
And then she became the it girl again. It's really interesting the way her career had gone. And I haven't watched Santa Clara Diet, which is now unfortunately canceled. But maybe I'll watch it then. But my wife watched it and she liked it. She thought it was really fun and
Mhm.
quirky. But yeah, she was up for a while, and then when she got a little older, it was a little bit tougher, I think, for her. And then she came back, and it's interesting. But as far as young actresses go, I think she does really well.
Oh gosh, yes. So, you're not gonna touch on the way it actually ended and how they resolved everything to keep her safe?
Oh, please, no,
That particular '80s trope?
oh, by all means, go ahead. You can, yes, okay. Well, we could go there about how they kept her safe. Uh,
Yeah, because that's a big thing that they did in the '80s too. That was the big threat to go to the media and expose everybody.
yes,
So, how does that work for us now that everybody has access to all the information all the time and everybody knows everything because it's published willingly by every person that has access to a keyboard?
fake news. Yeah, it had more impact on the '80s because that was the big thing ever since Watergate. Basically, it was go to the media with the secrets because her dad plays at it earlier. He sent letters to all the
Yep,
newspapers, and it was the New York Times was the only one that replied, wasn't it, or the first one?
something
To
like that, yeah.
yeah, because that's why initially they were leaving their sanctuary cabin and how they get tranquilized by Rainbird um,
Mhm,
was on the way to that. So yes, you're right. The very end, she goes with old Irv to the New York Times to expose the shop and all the evils that the government are doing with the taxpayers' money. The classic trope of the '80s, which
yep,
we've seen many times.
yep, and that's probably the only part of the movie that does not hold up.
It felt a little forced. I mean, I was fine with them just ending it with her being with Irv and Norma. They could have
Mhm,
rolled credits there because the newspaper part is so far in near the beginning of the film that
mhm,
I completely forgot about it. In all honesty, altogether, because so much had happened, you're just like, oh yeah, that's right. But that felt a little
yep,
it felt more natural for them to just end it with them hugging and being on the farm, chickens, credits roll. They could have done that. Uh, but you're right, '80s, especially mid '80s, go to the
mhm.
media for everything because the media is a legitimate source. Nowadays,
Well, it
people
used to be.
nowadays people would look at that and kind of laugh, which
Yep.
would be an interesting exploration though if you did it today. seeing people comment about girl starts fire with her brain, seeing clickbait articles, and that being what would you think about that if they did something like that today with this story, like a continuation, but now with the way media is and everybody has a camera and everything? Do you think they could pull off this story, either a remake or a true direct sequel, um, and play that
Um,
angle?
they might be able to,
Mhm,
except, I mean, they wouldn't go to the media. It would be a very different story
right.
because it would be a very different story because they'd probably be trying to hide from the media
Mhm,
and hide from the cameras and all that. Um,
right.
yeah,
Or
because everybody would be wanting to exploit her
mhm,
because everybody would have access to know what she's capable of and imagine what she's capable of or invent, conspiracy theorize.
mhm.
Yeah, it would be a very different story if they were to do it today.
Yeah, it would. Maybe have the dad be a blogger talking about the shop,
A podcaster.
a podcaster. Oh, what are you trying to say, Don? My kids can't control fire with their mind, but they are
Oh,
very
oh,
good at playing video games. So there is that.
well, who knows what they can do with their minds?
Well, I know that my son can devour many a potato chip. So there's that.
That's impressive.
That is very impressive. Life skills, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Was there anything else you maybe wanted to touch with Firestarter, or something in regard
One
to it?
one actually other thing
Sure.
that I thought was very, very good about the film, and I'm just going to mention it and let you expound on it because I know you will.
Okay.
Tangerine Dream.
Ah, yes. 80s synth soundtrack in full effect in
Mhm.
Firestarter. Um, it works for the film, I think, actually, in this case.
I
Uh,
agree.
I think it's fitting for the imagery and such that you have and the type of movie it is. This is one where, because it's kind of grounded in reality and just that style, and especially the period it came out with, it fits very well. I think it fits better than if you would have had a regular orchestral score to
S
it.
so 2 bits of information that I read about this,
Mhm.
and I didn't read about it till after I had the thought. The first bit is, when I was listening to this when I was paying attention to the soundtrack, I was thinking to myself, "Wow, this reminds me of John Carpenter movies."
Uh-huh.
So then I looked, and I was looking at the stuff, and John Carpenter was initially on board to direct this film.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's a thing that happened. And then, the other interesting bit was apparently Tangerine Dream never saw the movie or anything, never watched anything. They just sent the director a whole bunch of music and said, "Hey, use it for what you want." And it worked.
Wow.
Those are the 2 bits of trivia that I read about this, and the John Carpenter thing, yeah, I went looking for stuff because I thought that the music was so reminiscent of John Carpenter movies, and then to find that out just made it even more awesome.
That does make it even more awesome because, I could totally see Carpenter directing this,
Yeah,
and, in all honesty, I think he would have handled the Rainbird character better, um,
probably.
a little bit better. It would, because he's
Would have
probably
been Kurt Russell.
it would have been Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell. Snake Plissken is, instead of Rainbird, it's secretly Snake Plissken. He had the eye patch and everything, so there you go. So no, actually, all honesty, if Carpenter did this, Kurt Russell would have played the Andy character,
Probably,
which would have worked because it's Kurt Russell.
of
So,
course.
of course,
Although David Keith is just fine.
the David Keith is just fine for this because he's not really the focus of the film anyway. It is Drew Barrymore, And just coming off of E.T., the fact that you have a film that's a rather big film, have it on her shoulders, I think she carried it well.
Mhm.
Though it is interesting now to think about if Carpenter had done Firestarter.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it just thinking about if Kurt Russell had been
Andy,
cast,
yeah,
just in my little fantasy brain, um, I think he would have been too strong of an actor to play opposite Drew Barrymore. I think the focus would have shifted.
he would have maybe dominated the scenes too much. Yeah, you're
He's
right.
he's a
Yeah,
he's a very charismatic fella.
he is. That's true. Yeah, he is very charismatic. He's got a huge presence whenever
Mhm.
he's on screen. So you're right. It would have drawn
Oh,
away.
wait, you're not talking about those biceps?
He does.
Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. He does have impressive biceps, especially in the mid '80s. He
Uh-huh.
was quite impressive. Yeah, and the whole T-shirt from Big Trouble. I know. Okay, I get
Uh-huh.
it. And Escape from New York, shirtless. Where does the rest of the snake go? I understand. Okay, I understand. Kurt Russell would have been a bit of a distraction for Firestarter, but
Yes.
so well, I think we'll wrap it up here with this film. Yeah, folks, it is good. I think it's better received now than when it first came out. And watching it again after so long, it's a solid film. It still holds up thanks to the practical effects
Mhm.
they have in here. Because the one thing that for sure the director of what class of 1984 can do is action, or
Yes.
1999 or whatever it is.
Both of them. He did both of them.
He did both of them. That's right. So, yeah, he could definitely handle the action. And so you don't, regardless of how you might feel about the more character parts, the action parts are really impressive for the film, and it holds up today. I think this is a solid watch even today. Um, and I'm kind of glad they haven't remade it because there'd be too much CGI fire.
Oh god, definitely.
The Carrie remake. Don't get me wrong. I love Chloe Grace Moritz. I love. She's a great. I think she's a very talented actress, and she was the best part of the Carrie remake. But when we get to the ultimate scene at the home, the dance where she's just lays waste to everything, some of the decisions they made with CGI, I'm like, oh my
I'm
god.
glad I didn't see it. Again, I just haven't had time.
It's not horrible. She's the best
Eh,
part of the film, though. But you know,
I
we
can typically find good things in movies.
yeah, no, there's good
Mhm.
things to find in it. It's just that scene in general. I'm like, why, why are you doing that? You don't have to do that. So there you have it, folks. Hope that what your whistle for Firestarter. We got some other great kind of the theme for our, because it relates to the Cronenberg film later this month. We're dealing with kind of the things of the mind, people with telekinesis and such. So stay tuned for more great stuff this month. And now this is this time where I give Dawn the chance to shill what she does when she's not here.
Work.
Well, besides work.
On occasion, you can find me at intheaudience.net, and I write things on occasion, usually in the fall, close to festival season and Halloween, where the horror movies come out.
The horror movies come out to play.
Yes.
Yes, some great stuff. She writes stuff a hell of a lot better than I speak or write, so please check it out. Great and very interesting reviews. She always gives me great perspective. And thank you, Don, for joining me on this discussion tonight about Firestarter. I appreciate you, and I appreciate our listeners. And now let's just say good night.
Good night.
Good night. Fire will teach you to burn. Do, 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 do. Fire. Oh, sorry.
Fire, fire, fire,
Fire.
fire.
Fire. Fire. Fire. Yeah. Which he couldn't say anymore after the matches and the dumb kid set fire to his trailer. Um, you remember that story, right? With Beavis?
No,
No?
no.
Oh, yeah, with Beavis and Butthead. He used to say fire all the time. Fire, shut up, dumbass. And
Mhm.
well, a kid set fire to his trailer because he got a hold of matches that his mom had not put away so well. And he said that he was influenced by Beavis and Butthead and Beavis saying fire. So MTV, and I may be a little fuzzy on all the details and the way it exactly
Oh,
MTV
wow.
MTV to curb this, to try to not be liable, or people think they're liable, he stopped saying fire. What they did instead, which was even more hilarious, was every time he wanted to say fire, like when he saw fire in a music video, he'd just sit there biting his lip, turning red, like
Oh my god.
because he couldn't they didn't have him say fire anymore. So he
Oh
would
my
just
god.
he,
And the thing is, Beavis and Butthead was essentially Adult Swim.
it was. Oh yeah, it was Adult Swim before
What the
Adult
hell
Swim.
kind of parents let their child who doesn't know enough to not, you know, use matches to start their trailer on fire? What the hell kind of parent allows their child to watch Beavis and Butthead and then play with matches?
there, there were so many questions with that situation. But again, and I may be completely misread, but I remember that later on in the other episodes, he wouldn't say fire. He'd just sit there and like have a
It's
connection.
sad. It's so sad when MTV has to be the adult.
Man, you're doing something wrong if MTV ends up being the more mature one of the two.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I I believe that's how it played out because I just remember him not being able to say fire anymore. And it was
Wow.
because trailer fire because of Beavis. And
And now I'm inspired to pull out my Beavis and Butthead DVDs and watch them.
though they aren't quite as great
They're
because
not, but
because
still.
they couldn't get the licensing for the video commentary, which is why you really watched that.
Exactly.
It wasn't, I mean, the cut scenes, the cutaway animations were kind of funny in between, but man, I lived for their music video review.
Mhm. That was the best part of watching them. But still, it's fun to take them out and watch them for like 10 minutes.
Oh yeah. Well, and the actually Beavis and Butthead Do America, that was actually a really good movie. I couldn't believe that when they did their
Yeah,
feature
it was
movie.
better than I expected. Actually, I like that one better than I like South Park.
Ooh. Well, it is actually more, it is, as far as the story goes, it's actually got a better story.
Yeah.
Um, the way they did it, because they weren't exactly going for the all-out shock, which Matt Stone and Trey Parker, known for, South Park's known for. It was very fitting for
Yes.
the film. But yes, if I had to go head to head between those two, I will say that Beavis and Butthead do eke it out. While South Park
Mhm.
may have more laughs, ha ha, Beavis and Butthead, as far as a film itself, was a better film. I can agree with that.
Mhm.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
I appreciate Parker and Stone. It's just
Mhm.
not my preference. I mean, I
Sure.
loved Cannibal the Musical, but yeah, not my preference.
Wow. Okay. So I found the article. It was from October 10th of 1993.
Wow.
The kid, her 5-year old
What the hell? A 5-year-old kid being allowed to watch Beavis and Butthead.
watched a segment in which the character said fire was fun. According to the mother, right after that, she caught him playing with matches and the boy set his bed on fire. The mom was concerned enough that she took the boy's bedroom door off the hinges so that she could watch him more closely. And they were called to the family's mobile home after the boy set his bed on fire with a cigarette lighter.
Oh
Uh,
my. Oh my
Not only
god.
that, but unfortunately, his 2-year-old died in the
Oh no,
fire.
that's awful.
Yeah.
There okay, come on. There was a lot more going on in that situation than just
Uh-huh.
but I can see why MTV reacted the way they did. And yes,
Right.
it is a sad story, sorry state of affairs when MTV has to be the adult in a situation like that.
Right.
Oh my god.
So yeah, so unfortunately, and then in August, the fire chief blamed the cartoon for the fire,
Of course they
uh,
did.
for a fire that 3 girls started after watching the program. Um, so
Uh,
they showed a character setting a fire to a other's hair by using match to ignite the spray from an aerosol can, and the children tried to use that technique to set clothing on fire.
and again,
I'm
there is
sorry.
something wrong if parents haven't taught their kids that setting clothing on fire is bad.
I did stupid stuff too, but man, that is like I'm like, wow. So yeah, so that's why they changed their ways after that, and he could no longer say fire.
God.
He would just have a conniption. So yeah, the
Dude.
90s, you know.
Oh,
Isn't
boy.
isn't kind of sad though that they still blame media today for so many things that kids do rather than, looking at the situation.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and
I
so yeah, it hasn't
the
changed.
oh, yeah. Absolutely. Oh,
Uh,
yeah. And that's why Adam Ruins Everything is so popular because we've been we've been told all these stupid things all these years, and he debunks them all, and, yeah. People are what it comes down to is people are stupid, gullible creatures. Help me get the line right. People are a person is
it's
smart. People are stupid, gullible creatures, and we all know it.
yeah. I know you're from Men in Black.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's uh, and he's absolutely right. And yeah, it's sad, but yeah, that's why
Okay,
they
not gullible.
not
He
gullible,
said panicky, not
panicky.
gullible. I
Yeah,
said gullible.
but gullible works. Gullible works. I mean, let's face it. The internet is proof of that.
Oh God, yes.
So, well, thank you again for doing this. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the discussion.
Yep.
Yeah, Lamont sends his regards. He couldn't make it. He was working on his review of I Spit on Your Grave Deja Vu.
Yeah,
So
I'll pass.
I told him, I'm curious because I like Jamie Bernadette, the actress in it,
Mhm.
and I'm very curious. But on the other hand, as far as types of horror films, rape revenge, just if I know ahead of time that's the type of film it is, it doesn't exactly hit high on my list. I'm, you know, I'm not really that big of a fan of that genre. If I go into a film and I realize it is, I'll watch it and still, but it's just not at the top of my watch list.
And in my opinion, is there's so many movies out there. It's okay if I don't watch all of them. I mean, there's tons of them I still can watch, and I'll keep watching whatever I'm interested in as I go. And, there's a lot of directors that I like their style, so I'll seek them out.
Hmm.
Andrew, Chris Mem, Jeremiah Kipp, Tanya.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what more can a girl ask for?
Yeah. I hear you there. Well, I don't want to keep you too long tonight, so
Okay.
but this was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed this discussion.
It went in unexpected places.
It's always a good thing. That's why I love this show, and I enjoy sometimes. Not all the time. I don't think I could do, but I do enjoy sometimes these just mano y mano type discussions.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I probably had there been more people, probably would have gone off more on the whole misogyny, men controlling women, oppressing women
you could have
aspect, but
you
I
still could have
didn't
you
really want to.
no by all means
But
like that's
it
gonna affect me, Dawn. Come on,
no, it's not, but I also don't wanna I don't wanna expound a mad soliloquy in the middle of the spoiler room.
Well, we are talking mid 80s, so
That's true, so that would be appropriate.
the misogyny is quite rampant yet
Yeah.
in the mid 80s. That's why some of those standout sci-fi films are standout because the rest were, yeah, it was quite prevalent.
Mhm.
I mean, and then even in all honesty, I'll go so far as with Alien. Love Sigourney and the way she took it. You could tell though that it was fighting the times it was made.
Oh, definitely.
you know.
Definitely. And that's another thing that this movie really stands out for is not only is the child actor the star, but it's a female child actor who's the
Yeah,
star. And that's really a unique thing for the time.
shit, that's a unique thing now. What are you talking about?
Very true.
Not as unique. We're getting more of it, but it was definitely still a unique thing up until at least 5 years ago. So,
Mhm.
you know,
I mean,
we
there's a few of them, child actors being the star, but they're all children's movies, definitely not adult movies.
not in an adult rated R horror film
Mhm.
where she's setting things on fire. That's why I'm interested in Brightburn. I'm excited about Brightburn.
Mhm.
You've heard about Brightburn, right?
I haven't, but I'm sure I will.
Oh, okay. It's not a spoiler, and I know you don't watch trailers, but it's being done by is it Zack Snyder? I think it was Zack Snyder.
Oh, yeah, I have heard of this.
Yeah,
I have heard of this, yeah.
basically the story of Superman if he was
Yeah,
a gun. That's what it is. Yeah,
yeah, I wanna see this. I do wanna see this.
I loved the trailer for. I know you don't watch trailers, but I give him props to the trailer because the first half of the trailer is directed like Man of Steel. It's hilarious.
That's
It's
awesome.
complete with the whispering wheat and the shot of them grabbing the kid from the spaceship, and it was like beat for beat Superman.
Actually, I saw this trailer. I did see this trailer.
Oh, you did?
I don't remember where, but I did see this trailer.
It's like beat for beat, because you're almost like, what, are they redoing Superman or something?
And
You know
that's
what?
exactly what I thought when I saw this trailer.
And you watch it until like the last 30 seconds where suddenly he's got red eyes and he's flying around and doing bad things, and you're just like, oh,
It's
okay,
evil Superman.
it's evil super. So I'm very excited to see that, and where they go with that. Yeah, written by Brian and Mark Gunn, so
Mhm.
and produced by James Gunn. So there you go. That's it's like
Yeah,
I'm in right there,
me
and
too.
I
Oh, and I have off on Memorial Day.
yeah, and it's coming out Memorial Day too. So I mean, how more fitting is that?
Yeah,
So,
that's so cool.
yeah. Well, all right, Don. Well, I will let you go. So
Alright, we'll chat later.
we will definitely chat later. Sorry, I got a couple things to do too, though. I don't want to
That's okay.
kick you off though, because you know me, I could talk to you forever. So,
Oh, yeah.
especially when it
Alright.
comes to movies.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
Okay, we'll chat later. Good night,
later.
Mark.
Good night.